to see the choir here tonight and look forward to hearing them. But before we get to that, I'm going to pass over to Judy to get the meeting started.
Great. Welcome, everyone. Please rise for the national anthem. And now for the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are on the lands of Anishinaabe Nation. This spot where we gather is the traditional lands of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ottawa, Potawatomi, and Ojibwe. We also recognize that this land is now home to the Delaware Nation. This land was settled through the McKee Purchase Treaty of 1790, and we, as beneficiaries of the treaty, must recognize our responsibilities, including our collective responsibilities to the land and water. Mr. Mayor, we do not have a supplementary agenda this evening. Rules for the council chambers. Rules of decorum at the council meeting. The municipality of Chatham-Kent supports open meetings that welcome debate of public policy issues in an atmosphere of inclusiveness, integrity, civility, fairness, and respect of differing points of view. Anyone conducting themselves in a way that disturbs, disrupts, or impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting, interrupts or makes derogatory statements or hate speech, defamatory comments about councillors, staff, speakers, or fellow members of the public may result in removal from the premises. The use of posters, signage, and literature is also prohibited. Mr. Mayor, we do have one disclosure of pecuniary interest. Councillor McGrail has declared a conflict on item 19A, Together CK Grant, the 2024 funding recommendations. And now we'll move on to our featured artist, the Bel Canto Choir School Junior Choir. Welcome to, Devin Hansen, the Director of Music at St. Andrew's United Church, has forwarded the following introduction for the choir. The Bel Canto Choir School, welcome to a barrier-free redesign of the 21st century church choir school for children in the community. Unique to Chatham-Kent, it is that will be the only program that is this type by complementing St. Andrew's already vibrant music program. The Bel Canto Choice School is committed to helping young singers develop their natural talents and is free of charge to all participants. Choirists will explore Choirists will explore how the joyful experience of making music together can enrich their lives. Our team is made up of experienced musicians who will lead interactive rehearsals focusing on musicianship, performance skills, musical knowledge, and having fun. We start teaching the basic music principles with our newest members and continue this education to the more experienced. Using the talent and skill of the program staff to allow students to see what might be possible in their life is a role that music can play. It allows them to break into the new world and, moreover, share both their gifts with the world. Last year, they hosted the Children's Choir Festival for various children's choir in Chatham-Kent and Windsor, Essex. And most recently, they performed to an almost sold-out crowd at the Chatham Capitol Theatre for St. Andrew's annual Christmas concert. We welcome Christine Baribeau, who is one of the co-directors of the choir, here today to conduct them.
I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. That's an absolute amazing way to start a council meeting. So thank you so much. And for everybody that
Council, just while the choir is exiting, I have a bit of bad news for this evening. As you see above us, the projectors are not working this evening for the presentation. In front of you, in front of the podium, is the television, and if you can see that small of a screen, the presentation will be shown there. You do have your presentation in your council package if you wanted to follow along there with the two presentations this evening. But the members of the public at home will be able to see the screen. So Kojiko is able to tap into the front podium, and the members at home will be able to see it, and it will be shared on our website tomorrow. Also, further bad news, our voting is not working either. We've had some IT technical difficulties this afternoon. So we will have to do roll call for any of the votes that are brought forward, but there are minimum reports brought forward, so hopefully that won't take that long. So I just wanted to share that with council. We move on now to the presentations. We have an update on Hydro One projects, and we have two members from Hydro One. We'll welcome them to the podium now. Craig Purett and Alex Muscalet.
So Alex, it's going to be a tough act to follow from the choir, but I know you can do it.
I totally understand. That was amazing, really incredible. Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. It's good to be here today, in the heart of the classic car capital of Canada. My name is Alex Muscalet, and I'm the Senior Manager of Municipal and Community Relations at Hydro One. Joining with me today is Craig Pruitt, Manager of Major Projects, responsible for the execution of the transmission projects in southwestern Ontario. We're here today to build on our partnership and provide you with an update on the 5 transmission lines in the Southwest. More specifically, we'd like to share a status update on the St. Clair transmission line, including what we've heard through the environmental assessment process. I'd like to begin, however, with a snapshot of Hydro One by the numbers. As you'd expect, we have deep roots in communities across Ontario. We've been serving customers for over 110 years, and today we serve over 1.5 million homes and businesses. We own, manage, and maintain our electricity infrastructure. This translates to over 300 stations, 30,000 kilometers of transmission lines, and 125,000 kilometers of distribution lines. Our service territory covers approximately 90% of the province, and we serve over 25% of the population. As more homes get built and the province continues to grow, Ontarians are relying on us to bring a clean, reliable, safe power to their communities. I don't need to tell you that southwestern Ontario is booming. In this region, demand for electricity is expected to quadruple by 2035, according to the Independent Electricity System Operator, known otherwise as the ISO. That's why, in 2002, Hydro One received direction from the Ontario Minister of Energy to expand the transmission network in the region. These 5 transmission lines, when built, will help meet the needs of new and growing industries and continue to attract jobs to the region for years to come. As we expand the electricity system in the area, we are committed to listening to communities and incorporating their feedback into the planning of these 5 priority projects. Let's take a closer look at each of the projects. By the end of 2024, we will see the Chatham to Lakeshore transmission line go into service 1 year ahead of schedule and $15 million under budget. This new 230 kV line, double circuit transmission line, will form the part of the backbone of the region's transmission system. By 2030, to secure and provide capacity over the long term, a new 500 kV single circuit transmission line between Strathroy to Lakeshore will be completed, known as the Longwood to Lakeshore line. And while Hydro One has started planning work for both single circuit 500 kV lines with a route alternatives being planned in the coming months to be announced, the need date for the second Longwood to Lakeshore project has not yet been identified by the ISO. To add even more capacity and connect more businesses to the region, feasibility studies for the Windsor to Lakeshore project are currently underway. The in-service date for this project will also be informed by the ISO's regional planning process. Finally, I would like to share an update on Hydro One's proposed St. Clair transmission line. The proposed double-circuit 230 kV transmission line between St. Clair Township and Chatham-Kent will bring an additional 450 megawatts of electricity into the region, enough power to energize the city the size of London. This additional clean electricity will ensure energy security and help promote economic development and job creation. In February of 2022, Hydro One began a class environmental assessment as part of the planning for this project. We have since conducted numerous technical and field studies and engaged with Indigenous communities, municipalities, landowners, and government agencies. We've done this through open houses, workshops, one-on-one meetings, just to ensure the project is designed in a way that reflects the interests and needs of your community. After a thorough evaluation of 5 route alternatives, Hydro One selected the preferred route in June of last year, 80% of which uses existing transmission corridors and upgrades the existing line. Today, we've reached another important milestone for the project and are pleased to share we have submitted the final environmental study report and statement of completion to the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation, and Parks. Overall, the report showcases our deep commitment to the environment and our attention to build this project in an environmentally responsible manner. The public report reflects a wide array of important feedback, much of which is focused on the natural environment and habitat, agriculture, and land. We want to thank everybody for their feedback and their comments throughout this process. Furthermore, it reflects meaningful engagement with interest groups, including Waterwells First, who informed us of their historic concerns with pile driving and the installation of foundations through the Aquifer for Wind Farm projects and the potential for well interference. We have taken these concerns seriously and committed to ensuring the new transmission towers will remain a minimum of 30 feet above the top of the aquifer layer, leaving the regional aquifer undisturbed. Additionally, we have committed to not pile driving and only using helical screws for the installation of our transmission foundations. This construction approach is widely used in sensitive environments due to its simpler installation and minimal ground disturbances. I'd like to share a short video of this construction approach currently being used on our Chatham to Lakeshore transmission line to demonstrate how helical screws work. As you can see with this approach, foundation designs with a helical blade are rotated or screwed into the ground, eliminating the need for pile driving. When using this construction approach on our Chatham to Lakeshore project, we found ground disturbances to be negligible, with vibration levels 10 times lower than the well pumps that are used to draw water. Representatives from the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation, and Parks visited our construction site to observe the use of helical screws as part of their independent review of the EA report. The ministry has concluded that should we commit to using helical screws for all of our transmission tower foundations and remain above the regional aquifer, the ministry will not require any assessment of groundwater resources at this time for the construction of this project. We will stand by this commitment. We plan to begin construction once we obtain Ontario Energy Board approval, following our submission later this year with an in-service date of 2028. In the meantime, we continue to engage with landowners, Indigenous communities, municipalities, and stakeholder groups as we progress the design and construction of this project, because we believe that building trust with communities isn't work that has an end. It is a commitment that continuously evolves as we listen, learn, and grow. Thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, and thank you for that presentation. I just have a quick question about the helical screws. How long are they? How far down do they go?
It's a good question. Craig?
Thanks for the question. So my name's Craig Pruitt, manager of strategic projects for Hydro One. The screws we're in detailed design at this point in time. So they're going to be somewhere between 6 meters and 7 meters of depth. That's how we're getting to our commitment around a minimum of 30 feet above the aquifer. In lots of areas, we're well beyond that, 100 feet or more above the aquifer. They're very shallow in nature.
Thank you. Do you know how far down the aquifer is? Is it different in different areas, or how do you decide?
Yep, that's a great question. So the aquifer does change depth along the length of the line. It's the shallowest in Wallaceburg, around Wallaceburg area, and that's the area where we have the 30 feet minimum. And it gets deeper as you go out towards the Sarnia and this end, Chatham-Kent.
Great, thank you very much.
Councillor Jubenville?
Thank you, and thank you for the report. And I also appreciate you mentioning the sensitivity of the aquifers in North Kent. I just want to confirm that I understood properly that at this time, because of what the ministry said, you will not be doing any kind of testing, any groundwater testing. Does that mean you will not be testing wells?
Yeah, thank you for the question. We've heard from the feedback that from the Waterwells group that their concerns were around the pile driving and the foundations in the aquifer. We're taking a very different approach here. What we're doing is we're staying 30 feet above the aquifer. We're also not pile driving. We're using a construction approach that, has used very widely in environmentally sensitive areas. The conversations that we're going to have are on the level of the individual property owner. So those are the individual conversations we'll be having one-on-one with landowners and addressing their concerns specific and unique to their property.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bondi?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Hi, thanks very much. 2 questions, simple, I think. When you build these transmission lines, the land that you go over, do you expropriate it, buy it, lease it? Like, you must have some sort of ownership, obviously. Or maybe not ownership, I don't know, that's the question. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So land, there's generally 2 types of land acquisition for our projects. One is an easement agreement where the landowner retains title, overall ownership of the property, but essentially grants us rights to have our assets there. And in rare instances, some landowners may elect to allow us to acquire the entire property under a fee simple arrangement. So in that case, then Hydro One would own the property. That's a rare circumstance. The vast majority of our acquisition is easement on their properties.
And when an easement's granted, is the landowner compensated?
Yep, absolutely. We have a landowner compensation acquisition process, which lays out a number of steps to engage landowners, compensate them for their investment of time and effort to talk to us in advance of the project construction. So we need to get on properties to do early access investigations. So that would be work that we've been doing already around field studies for species at risk or archaeological investigations. And then we move to a permanent acquisition process where, again, we work with the landowners, compensate them for a number of different aspects. So there'll be times when they'll be unable to plant crop because we'll be working there at that point in time. So we'll compensate them for the loss of crop production for the times that we're working there. And then also other effects to their property that are assessed by the third-party property assessor. So we get an independent evaluator out to assess those changes to the property and compensate the landowner on that basis. In terms of farming, again, for the vast majority of our transmission lines, farming is a compatible use under our corridor, and so the farmers you'll see in most fields are already farming right to the edge of the tower base and underneath it.
And just one quick follow-up to that. In the unlikely event that a farmer says, I don't want these things on my land, then what do? Do you have to reroute it, or can you expropriate? What's the solution if somebody just doesn't, want a tower on their land?
Sure. We work very hard to find solutions that are acceptable to landowners to allow us to reach voluntary settlements. We're very pleased on the Chatham by Lakeshore project that we reached 100% voluntary settlement with every landowner on that project. There is some avenues with other infrastructure projects to move through expropriation, but that's, again, a very rare occurrence, and our objective always is to reach that voluntary settlement with the landowners and find a path forward to resolve any issues or concerns they may have with the placement of towers.
Well, I'm sure you're very generous. If you want to put one on my property. I'll take two. Sorry. One more, just quick question about the screwing and the pile driving. I thought pile driving was only necessary to go into bedrock. And like these screws, they can't screw into bedrock, I assume.
No, absolutely. Sorry, I'll come to the mic. No, absolutely not. So I'll try to resist the urge to put my engineer hat on for a moment, but the majority of these towers are trying to be pulled over from the wires. That's what they're resisting at the foundation. Mostly driven piles, as you say, into bedrock are resisting heavy things trying to settle into the ground. No, these piles will stay in the clay layer, and the screw portion of them essentially tries to resist the towers being pulled over. So we want them to be in that clay layer, and we want the good amount of friction that's created by not disturbing the ground. We want the clay to stay as it is because we're using it as a giant weight essentially to stop the tower from tipping over.
Great, and the video that we saw, that's it? That's the process?
That's it. And then we cut the top off and weld a plate onto it and put a tower on there.
Wow, it's very slick, very simple.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for taking my 9 questions.
No problem.
Seeing no other questions, thank you for the presentation and the update. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll move on to the deputations for this evening. We have received 4. 3 of them are not able to be here tonight, so their emails were shared with council. Charlie Minton, a resident of and Ridgetown BIA board member, Janine and Matt Myers, and Jim Brown, chair of the Ridgetown BIA. All 3 were received with regards to item 18D, the motion of Councillor Pinsino regarding the update to McKinley Road between New Scotland Line and Rose Beach Line. On the same item, we have 1 deputation here this evening. Mr. Peter Rose, if you want to come forward to the podium. Mr. Rose, I'll just remind you that you have a maximum of 5 minutes. The timer is not on the screens, but it is in front of us here. Maybe I'll just give a wave of my hand when there's a minute left, just so you know, since you can't see it, okay? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor Caniff, council members, and community members, my name is Peter Rose, and I've lived on Rose Beach Line my entire life. Others on our committee on this project is Frank Gerber, Charlie Midden, Peter Watson, and Mike Ginge. There are 140 residents on Rose Beach Line between Antrim Road southwest to Kent Bridge Road. We had approximately 165 residents sign a petition to upgrade McKinley Road, and there was nobody opposed to it. We represent a significant tax base to Chatham-Kent, estimated to be $1.2 million per year. As waterfront property owners, we are highly taxed, but do not consume a lot of services. We have no streetlights, no sewers, no sidewalks, or no curbs. But what we do need is a better road access from the east. Our community had a hard surface access to Morpeth, Ridgetown, other eastern destinations until Rose Beach Line was closed in 2018 because of erosion. Since the closure, the best route that most of us now use is McKinley Road, which is gravel between New Scotland Line and Rose Beach Line. That gravel road has deep, dangerous potholes and washboarding and can cause cars to bounce off the road surface if you're driving too fast. It can be muddy and slippery at times, and it's hard on our vehicles, windshields, etc. what we are asking, we are asking for Chatham-Kent to provide a hard surface treatment such as tar and chip for the 1.4 kilometers of McKinley Road between Rose Beach Line and New Scotland Line. We have had an estimate of about $67,000. McKinley Road from New Scotland Line to Talbot Trail has been tar and chipped for 25 years or more, and it has held up very well. The tar and chip has performed very well in this general area because of the good stable base and good drainage. There was a strong community feedback during the ACOM meetings about the time of the road closure, and in those meetings, a lot of our people highlighted the need to address the McKinley Road route. Our concerns were not acted upon, and that is resulting in the serious situation we have now. Why Chatham-Kent should address this issue? Our community has lost this eastern route when Rose Beach Line was closed at Antrim. Traffic patterns have changed due to the closure, and this section of McKinley Road requires frequent maintenance. The cost of this yearly maintenance is comparable to the projected cost of tar and chipping. Ridgetown merchants have suffered reduced business as residents now take the hard surface routes to Blenheim. Ridgetown is our nearest town for post office, municipal services, medical needs, car repair, stores, recreation, banking, churches, seniors club activities, etc. Emergency services take longer to get to our community from Ridgetown because of our poor road access. We are part of the waterfront trail system. GPS will direct tourists down Rose Beach Line to McKinley Road with large 40-foot RV trailers. McKinley Road is not able to handle them, and it's dangerous for them and any vehicle meeting them. The gravel road affects the access to the Rose Beach Public Park,
That's 1 minute, just to let you know, Mr. Rose.
which many people enjoy all year round. Other comparable communities have a hard surface access. Ronda Bay Estates, Erie Beach, Erie, Shrewsbury have had hard surface for many years. New Scotland Line leading to Rondo Shores Trailer Park and Onico Road is hard surfaced. The three homes at the Rose Beach Line closure site had a new paved road access built just last year. Talbot Trail in the Coatsworth Road area is closed due to erosion, and CK in that case is moving towards possible hard service for them. Why are we not being helped? In summary, we are not asking for something new. We are asking for what we had and lost, a drivable, safe road. Tar and chip the 1.4 kilometer section of McKinley Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Now move on to the consent agenda. So the following items have been pulled for discussion. Item 16A, the RFP award contract R23-308, the building condition assessment for municipal facilities, pulled by Councillor Sakatchi. Item 17A, the Riverview Gardens Information Technology Strategic Plan. We have a presentation this evening, and it's been pulled by Councillor Harrigan. Item 18A, the Wheatley Emergency Update, has been pulled by Councillor Anderson and Councillor Harrigan. Item 18D, the motion of Councillor Pinsnow regarding the upgrade of McKinley Road between New Scotland Line and Rose Beach Line, has been pulled by Councillor Pinsnow and Councillor Sakatchi. Item 19A, Together CK Grant 2024 funding recommendations. We have a conflict by Councillor McGrail and pulled by Mayor Caniff. Therefore, on the consent agenda, we have the following reports: 15A, B, C, D, E, F, 16B, 18B, C, 19B, 20A, B, C, and 21A.
Councillor Bondi and Councillor Finn, can I get you to move the consent agenda, please?
I'd be happy to move.
Happy to second.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
We'll put it to vote verbally, sorry, Council.
Sorry, anyone opposed on this?
Sure.
Anyone opposed to the consent agenda? Seeing none, approved.
And just to let the public know and council, Councillor Pinsnow, Councillor Story, and Councillor B. McGregor are on virtually.
Item 16, tender awards.
16A, RFP award contract R23-308, building condition assessments, municipal facilities.
Councillor Sakachi and Councillor Allen, can I get you to move this, please?
So moved, Mayor Caniff.
Happy to second it.
Councillor Sakachi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Just a couple of quick questions to Mr. Soldo. Edward, I did have a couple of questions that came in that I wanted to ask that just came in just before the meeting. They're not very detailed, but a couple residents asked about the municipal staff components of this and kind of why it wouldn't be something that our staff could undertake. Can you just talk about a little bit about the detail that goes into these assessments and kind of what the undertaking is and how detailed it actually is? They did find the reports very helpful, but I think it would be good to have just a, like a layman's response to that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the councillor, these building condition assessment reports really are essential in terms of helping us determine what we need to do in our buildings as we move forward underneath our asset management plans. There is quite a bit of number of buildings that we're actually doing as identified in the appendix. So just the volume alone of doing all these building condition assessments is quite the undertaking. Our staff is very much focused on the maintenance and operations of the day-to-day operations on our buildings. They don't necessarily have the expertise that we're looking for to undertake these building condition assessments. This involves looking at everything from the HVAC units to the structural components of the buildings themselves to the lighting components. So you can imagine you need different types of expertise to undertake those building condition assessments, everything from electrical engineers to mechanical engineers to structural engineers. So that's not a skill set that we currently have on staff. Sending this out to consultant also ensure that we have a very consistent methodology and evaluation approach to all the buildings, so that when the information does come back, we have an apples to apples comparison for all the buildings themselves.
Thank you. Just two other quick questions. So obviously we have some pretty large decisions that we're going to be making in the future about some of our municipal assets. I'm just curious if direction would be required to ensure that we could prioritize some of the ones that we might be discussing in the near future. And the reason why I'm asking that is for two reasons. I know it's a pretty aggressive timeline, but I was also wondering if we were going to wait to address some of the seasonal recreational amenities such as arenas when the floors are out, so we can ensure we're doing a detailed dive. I know Blenheim has potential upcoming maintenance required, and I'm just trying to see if that's something that we're going to ensure that we can take the best look at we can while the ice is actually out.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's an excellent question. There is quite a bit of buildings that we have, facilities in this, and the asset management process is a continuous improvement process. So we'll be looking at these buildings as an initial baselining currently as we have them. The arenas are the assessment of those arenas and some of the other recreational facilities are actually key inputs into our upcoming Parks and Rec master plan as well. So we will undertake the assessment to ensure we have all the components covered off, waiting obviously till the ice comes out so we can see those other components that are still in use at that time. But our goal is to come back in June and have all that work done.
Thank you. And then just lastly too as well. So I guess I'm a little bit surprised that this is something that we haven't did it in the past. Has that presented challenges for yourself coming in as well? And when you're making these detailed decisions, not kind of having the scope of an assessment, and maybe just to finish up with the kind of the importance of why this exercise, because it is a pretty significant cost allocation for the consultant. But just I know you kind of mentioned it, but just why this is very important to spend this funds in regards to making detailed decisions moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This work really will help inform the asset management plans. And really the purpose of those asset management plans is to spend the right amount of money at the right component of whatever asset that we're looking at the right time. And this information, we don't have that sort of detailed information for all of these buildings. It's quite a bit of facilities that we have. And we want to make sure that it is about comparing apples to apples here, not apples to orange. So having this baseline set now will allow us in the future then to do updates about in terms of the building condition assessments at the appropriate time. Without this information, it makes it really difficult for us to come up with informed, data-driven asset management plans.
Thank you, and I think this report, when it comes back, it's going to help future decisions as well to see what work some facilities in our community needs. Thank you very much for the report and the recommendations, Edward.
Seeing no other questions, anyone opposed to the motion? Seeing none, motion approved. Item 17, Health and Human Services.
Riverview Gardens Information Technology Strategic Plan, and I'll invite Mary Alice up to the podium.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I would like to welcome and introduce ANA Consulting, ANA Ward Consulting, the consultants for Riverview Gardens Information Technology Strategic Plan. We have Harry Turnbull and Julie Fraser with us tonight. They're based in southwestern Ontario, and they have extensive experience planning, implementing, and evaluating strategic health and IT system initiatives. They're here tonight to share the results of their findings after exploring Riverview Gardens' technology needs and opportunities for improvement. They've done site visits, focus groups, and individual meetings. We look forward to sharing the report tonight, and I'll turn you over to ANA Ward Consulting.
Thank you, Mary Alice. Mayor Caniff, members of council, thank you for the opportunity to present a brief overview of the report. My name is Harry Turnbull. I retired from the City of Windsor after 35 years, including Chief Information Officer of the city. In that role, I had responsibility for all the technology in the city, including their long-term care home, Riverview, Huron Lodge. With me is Dr. Julie Fraser, with an extensive background in public health, analytics, and community engagement. The third member of our team, Dr. Ryan DeForge, couldn't be here today, but he brought his background in research and specialization in aging populations. It was our pleasure to work with the team at Riverview Gardens, as well as the team in the ITT department to develop this plan. All of our work was done with a focus on resident, staff, and family experiences. While technology is a big part of the plan and a big part of the way forward, technology is not the focus. Dr. Fraser will now talk to us, to walk us through the process.
Thanks, Harry. So our work with RVG was comprised of 4 phases. The first involved data gathering through comprehensive engagement, best practice review, and all of that culminated in current state assessment. The information from the current state assessment yielded 45 potential IT initiatives, all directed at enhancing IT capacity, resident care, and the overall operations of RVG. From there, we engaged with nurse leaders, managers, and department heads to understand the potential impact and set clear priorities related to those recommendations. And the final plan itself includes budget implications, evaluation criteria, and an implementation pathway. So when we look at the research and analysis, in phase 1, we had 260 points of engagement that included staff, residents, family members at RVG, and a series of individual interviews that included representatives of the municipality in the IT area.
No, really.
The engagement that we did showed some clear priorities across RVG leadership and administration, direct care and support staff, and residents and family members that included a desire to see IT improvements support the proper dispensation and use of medication, better access to and tracking of resident health information, enhanced communication between staff and with staff. There was also a very clear message that IT improvements ultimately have the capacity to improve organized operational efficiency, leaving more time for direct resident care. Now I'll turn it back to Harry.
So through all that engagement, we were able to identify a bit of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So we'll start with the threats. The cybersecurity threats from external actors, as you've seen in southwestern Ontario healthcare very recently, It continues to increase and then continues to need a significant focus, and more work is needed to protect RVG and the corporation as a whole from cybersecurity threats. Getting a lack of qualified people applying to positions continues to be a threat as well. And competing priorities will pull resources away from the efforts needed to move forward if it is not managed. On the weaknesses side, Riverview Gardens is very reliant on manual processes and paper records, resulting in significant duplication of effort. There's funding challenges which make it difficult to maintain, improve, and sustain the investments in technology currently there and the ones that need to come in the future. Recruitment is a real challenge for both Riverview Gardens and for the ITT department. IT project governance and project management is required to ensure projects stay on track and working on the right things, and work is needed in that area. But these provide many opportunities to improve, opportunities for improved communication between staff, leadership, residents, and families. Automation of manual processes will go a long way to making Riverview Gardens more efficient and effective. And manual effort also results in a lack of data to be used for analytics, required reporting, and more informed decision-making. So data analytics is a significant opportunity as well. On the strength side, the relationship between the staff and residents is excellent and will only improve with more efficient and effective processes. There's a strong set of IT policies and practices in place that will help ensure these initiatives are successful. And Riverview Gardens has well-documented and well-understood processes in place across all areas. What this means is Riverview Gardens is in a good position to take the next steps to a more digitized, modern, and resident-centered approach to service delivery. So that brings us to the gap analysis. So our detailed SWOT analysis identified the specific gaps that currently exist in Riverview Gardens' operational framework as follows. The technological constraints. This has already started to be addressed through your Wi-Fi initiative, but the current network design was really hampered by the limited Wi-Fi capability. Wi-Fi is no longer just a nice thing to have. It is essential, not only for the tools and techniques that are required to modernize a facility, but also for the residents and their family to stay in touch. The human resources, the first line of support deficit. A noticeable gap is evident in the staffing for first line support of technology at Riverview Gardens. Currently, the local support is primarily focused on scheduling and configuration of core systems. This leaves a significant void in first line defense support affecting timely response to technical issues, potentially impacting staff efficiency and the overall experience. There's many communication discrepancies. RVG's current operational setup features several gaps, a crucial factor that can make or break an organizational efficiency. There's gaps between administration and staff in communication, between Riverview Gardens and IT, and also between staff, residents, and family caregivers. Data management gap. Riverview Gardens' ability for comprehensive reporting, analysis, measurement, and informed decision-making is currently hindered by the lack of available and consolidated data. This hampers data-driven decision-making, mandatory reporting, and analytics. Significant financial challenges also identified in initiatives in sustaining the existing environment present a significant challenge.
One of the other things we did in the course of writing this plan was we examined those 45 initiatives in terms of their alignment with both the RVG quality improvement priorities and Chatham-Kent's IT pillars, because they don't exist in a vacuum, right? So what we found was that there are 35 recommendations. Those are things that, if you can see here, show up as check marks that offer clear alignment with other priorities and pillars. In fact, there is not a single area in those two priorities and pillars that doesn't have at least one supporting recommendation.
So the 45 initiatives, they fall into a series of categories shown here. Under these categories, there are 45 initiatives, along with an assessment of the cost, effort, and impact on both staff and resources. The corporate foundational, and governance categories contain initiatives that should be addressed early to set up the other initiatives for success. So the next few slides basically goes through the 45 initiatives. We don't have time to go through those today. They're all laid out in your report, but we're available for questions if you have any of those. And we'll wrap up just with a brief summary. Riverview Gardens has well-documented policies and procedures in place with a focus on resident care. So while they have a lot of manual effort, that sets them up well to modernize. There's a good set of core applications in place to build on, and the residents have a very positive relationship with staff. Those things will only improve over time. The staff show a strong commitment to providing excellent resident care. And Riverview Gardens is in a good position to take the next steps to a modern resident-centered approach to service delivery. Chatham-Kent has an excellent IT strategic plan that all future projects should be aligned with. There's many significant gaps that will need to be overcome in order to be successful. We've also reviewed the accompanying council report and agree with the recommended approach as a reasonable plan of action to kick off these modernization initiatives. Thank you. We are available for questions.
Councillor Harrigan.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I'll move these recommendations, and then I have a couple of questions.
Councillor Wright, can I get you to second them, please?
I'll second that. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Harrigan.
Great, thank you through the mayor. And certainly if the presenter or Mary Alice would like to answer the questions, that either is fine for me. The first question I had was about the positions that are being recommended around the business analyst role. And I'm wondering if you could just give us some insight as to how that role will help support the implementation of the plan itself.
Great, thank you, through the mayor. Thank you for the question. So the business analyst that we are recommending is to help us walk through this whole plan, maybe not the whole plan, but to get it started, and to provide some resources. It's going to take some work to assess what are the tools we want, what are the priorities, and then to do the change management process as well at the same time. So they can have some dedicated time to help us actually launch some of these necessary initiatives.
Great, thank you. And I think that's so important to just draw attention to, because oftentimes we have the plan, but without dedicating the resources to implement the plan, then it gets kind of shelved on the proverbial municipal shelf for all of the strategic plans that we have. So thank you for that. The plan itself, I think, is really well done. It's very robust, and really, I think, just from my own experience too, and seeing healthcare and working across partners, we really do look at IT is kind of the bottom of the list of things that we have to do, because patient care and resident care is so important to us. So to have this focus really lets us move from break fix into more strategic direction, thinking about where we can modernize the resident facilities. So I really appreciate that. The one thing that I did, and it really did just pop into my head, was the thought about cost sharing. So something like, I saw the learning management system. Is there a possibility to have conversations with either Chatham-Kent proper or other long-term care or retirement homes to look at cost sharing some of the IT services or IT initiatives that might be more license-based or could be potentially shared in that way as we move forward into years 3 and 4 of the plan?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think one of the things the business analyst will do is they will look at what opportunities do we have to actually save money, to collaborate with others, and bring some of those costs down. So absolutely, that'd be one of those things we'd explore.
Great, thank you. Those are all my questions. Thank you so much for the presentation and the detailed plan.
Seeing no other questions, is there anyone opposed to the motion? Seeing none, it's passed. Item 18, infrastructure and engineering services.
18A, Wheatley emergency update.
Councillor Anderson and Councillor Harrigan, can I get you to put this on the floor, please?
I'm happy to do that.
And I will second the recommendations.
Okay, Councillor Anderson, I'll go to you, and then I'll go then to Councillor Harrigan.
Thank you so much, and through you. I just wanted to talk a little bit about a couple of things, and thank you so much, Ryan, for this report. And it's definitely something that we've been looking forward to getting, and it was very detailed, so thank you very much for that. I think my first question may be for our Deputy Fire Chief. I wondered, the gas monitors, when will they be available, and how will residents go about getting them?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can answer the question. I was speaking with the fire department earlier. So they've been managing the legacy oil and gas funding as detailed in the report. But they have ordered the meters, so they're awaiting their arrival. They've ordered 500 to start, but there's enough money to order another 500. And so they're hoping to be received later this month. So we've been working with the communications team on putting together a package to send out to the public so they'll know when this is happening and how to get in touch, how to get more information. But they will be going door to door, starting with the original evacuation zone around the explosion site to all residences and businesses, going door to door. And then once they're done that kind of core downtown, they're going to be moving out to more of the outlying areas. But there'll be lots of information in the media on it, and the fire department will be coming door to door on it.
That's great, and I can't thank you enough for taking the initiative and applying for that grant, because I think that it definitely will give some peace of mind to the residents of Wheatley, for sure. One of my other questions was about when can we expect to see, now that we see that there's purchase of some buildings, when can we expect to see some movement there with some buildings coming down?
So the motion that's before you, or the recommendation before you, is to purchase approximately half of the properties in the evacuation zone. So there's still some future reports to come regarding the other properties in the zone. But once those properties were all acquired, we have been working on some plans for the next steps in the investigation. But ideally, those plans could come to fruition like later this spring, early this summer. The buildings need to be demolished, and obviously give a chance for anyone to get personal effects out of the buildings or anything else that's needed. There's some steps that have to be taken to demolition them, not in an emergency setting. So we have to do, designated substance reviews and remove any asbestos or stuff before we demolish them. So there's some steps in place. But the real intent of trying to move forward with this is so that we can line up demolition of the buildings and also explore underneath them. So as some of the consultant reports have mentioned before, there is a possibility of some wells on the site that we have not found yet. So the intent would be to demolish the buildings, do an investigation under them, and we've started to develop all the required procurements that would be required for that. So we're going to need contractors, we're going to need safety systems on standby. And so hopefully, if all the properties can be acquired, that'll happen this or late spring, early summer.
Thank you, and this may be more a question for Mr. Taylor. All of the assessments went out to all of the buildings at the same, all the owners at the same time. So the delay in the purchase of any of these properties is not a delay on CK's side of things. It's just where the negotiation process is, that these ones have been finalized and other ones have not.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, that's right, Councillor. We went through a process of doing a whole series of appraisals on the properties, and those all came in at the same time. We got them out to the owners kind of on the same day, and really just since then, it's a time of the owners having to consider things and get legal advice and that type of process. So that's why some of them are here so far, and other ones are still being worked on.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just wanted it to be known for the public that this is an ongoing thing, and it is going to come in several different steps as negotiations are being completed. But it is an ongoing process, and CK is actively trying to come to common ground with all of these owners. My only other question is related to the bylaw, of looking into the bylaw. So maybe we could discuss, kind of the effects that we could see that this may have on developments in Wheatley, if there is like such a bylaw in place, and when would we ever need to go below the 6 meters. I guess after talking with Hydro One here, their screws are going to go down up to 7 meters, and they think that that would still be 30 feet above the aquifer. So what made us come to the 6 meter depth, and is that something that we can maybe negotiate on?
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the question. So that question is exactly why we didn't bring a bylaw that was where we were in a position of asking council to pass it tonight, is because we want to get feedback from different businesses that might be impacted from this, from residents and that type of thing, and be able to understand, is there different considerations, whether that's the depth or whatever it might be, that we need to take back and reconsider when we present a final bylaw for council where administration is actually recommending a passing of it. The 6-meter depth was provided by one of the experts that we had working on this matter, and it really was to this idea of the depth of the clay layer can vary from place to place, and let's make sure that we're kind of cautiously within that clay layer, so that a deep excavation doesn't end up causing a pathway, or we can reduce the chance of it causing another pathway to surface for a gas release. And so that 6-meter is putting in some kind of conservative gap between the bottom of the clay layer and the top. We also spoke to our building officials and other people who would kind of help us understand what's the depth that somebody might need to go, say, for a house basement or whatever it might be. And 6 meters would be enough for that. But again, we don't know everything that somebody might do in an excavation, so that's the idea tonight, is just put the bylaw out there for consultation. It's a unique bylaw. It's not something that we have from other jurisdictions because of the really unique situation that's being dealt with in Wheatley, and we'll get feedback and be able to return to council with that feedback for any kind of future considerations on what the exact terms of the bylaw should be.
Yeah, thank you. I definitely appreciate bringing a bylaw. I think that it makes us responsible as a municipality, now that we've gone through something like this, to make sure that we do have certain things in place in case something like this were to happen again. And if it was somehow accidental through some sort of drilling or excavating or whatever it may be. I would like consideration to be given to CK as a whole, only because I know that we have studied Wheatley, and that's why it's kind of, the bylaw is being focused on that. But I think even with Hydro One sharing the studies that they've done, they know that there is some shallow aquifer around all of CK. So I think, moving this bylaw forward, maybe certain consideration should be given to it being a municipally wide bylaw, and I'll just leave it at that.
Councillor Harrigan?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Councillor Anderson astutely asked many of the questions that I had, but I just wanted to perhaps ask the question for public benefit. If you could give what I would call like the coffee shop or the layperson's explanation of what the excavation bylaw currently sits at, and then also if there are any, points of interest that residents may want to think about. So I think you kind of answered the points of interest with the basement. That's where my mind was, but there may be others.
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the kind of coffee shop version, the short form version of the bylaw, I would encourage people, it's attached to the council report tonight. We're also working with our communications team in order to kick off kind of a more detailed public consultation, so it'll likely be on our Let's Talk page, things like that, to make sure people know about it. But the short form version of it is that between the surface and 6 meters below ground, residents within Wheatley would still be able to do excavations, and there's no kind of regulation about that. There's no kind of permit required or anything, and we believe that that should cover most of the excavations people would need to do. If excavation needs to go deeper than 6 meters, it then poses some risk of causing a new pathway to surface for gas. And we recognize, though, that for different businesses, it may be necessary to do an excavation deeper than that. And so it's not that it's prohibited, but we just get into a spot to where we're proposing to regulate that. Someone would have to apply for a permit to the chief building official, and part of that permit's all laid out in the bylaw. They'd have a safety plan and some gas monitoring and kind of put up some other details about what would happen if in that deep excavation resulted kind of in a gas release. And it's all about trying to mitigate kind of the potential for a future gas release. So that's kind of the short form version of it. From 0 to 6 meters, fine for an excavation. That should cover most excavations. Below that, you need to get a permit, and we'll have to go through some technical review, including probably some engineered design on how that's going to look. So there could be excavations such as geothermal heating that might go deeper than that. That's one we thought about. Hopefully there's not too many of them, and it's only within the boundaries of Wheatley right now. The reason for that is that is what the experts that have done work for us in this project have recommended, is that we know that there is gas in the aquifer within that area. We don't know elsewhere, and so that's why it's recommended so far for just being the boundary of Wheatley.
Great, thank you. And I think this is more of a general comment to our CAO and other leadership team. I think we are now in this very interesting kind of middle point of the Wheatley recovery, where we're starting to think more forward thinking about what Wheatley looks like. And what I don't want to miss is the opportunity to kind of reflect and design processes now that there's been some time to, I think, both recover from the trauma of what took place in Wheatley, but also to kind of move forward and have some distance and think about what did we learn? What can we share with other communities? What other bylaws or processes should we put in place should there be other emergencies that happen of this nature? I think our staff team did such an excellent job in that immediate recovery, and we want to make sure that it's documented. So I know that there were initial conversations about that, but I see this bylaw as an example of us starting to now have a bit of space from it and to be able to put some meaningful regulation in place to improve community. So thank you for that.
So through you, your worship, maybe I can just speak to that real quick. So that's exactly what we're doing. In fact, we met with some representatives of Leamington today to talk to them about the bylaw, to give them a heads up about the devices that we're acquiring, but also talk to them about advocacy. There's still work to be done. There are still part of the reason why this was a challenge, I think, for the team when this happened is no one really knew who to go to. Unfortunately, different ministries were sort of giving different answers in terms of jurisdiction. So there's still work to be done so that if this happens, somewhere else, hopefully not here, but if ever happens again, the response will be very different. And clarity of roles, I think, needs to be in place, and also legislation needs to be put in place. There's a real lack of regulation in some of these areas. So that's exactly what we're doing. You're right. We don't want to forget about that. And I can tell you the team will not forget about it. I think we kind of feel we have an obligation to make sure that we learn from this and that others hopefully don't have to go through sort of the same process in the future.
Great, thank you.
Seeing no other questions, sure, go ahead, Councillor Story.
Interrupt.
Go ahead, Councillor Story.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to ask a quick question, possibly to Ryan, but I also wanted to share my thanks to administration for such a impressive job in working on this over the last several years. It's been such a methodical and thorough process, so I'm really appreciate all of that work to really continue to move this forward. And special thanks to Councillor Anderson for her leadership this term, and Councillor Harrigan especially for last term, getting it this far. I know you both worked really hard to advocate for the citizens of Wheatley, and it's been such a challenge to see this happen, but feeling that there is good forward movement now. So I wanted to thank everyone for their work, and especially advocating with the province to subsidize a lot of this financial obligation that we have seen. Just looking at the report, over 22 million spent, but the province kicking in over 16 million of that. So that is a wonderful example of advocacy from our whole team. So thanks to everyone for doing that. To build on Councillor Harrigan's point, my question is, it looks like we're about 5.6 million that we are paying out of that net. Do we have any sense moving forward, even a ballpark figure of what our continued costs are going to be? Maybe that's for Ryan, Edward, I'm not quite sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So earlier I detailed a few things. One is demolition of these properties.
High level estimates, I believe some of the other buildings were in the $50,000 per building to demolish. And there's quite a number of properties on this list, but we have ongoing air monitoring costs. We still have hazmat technicians there 24/7. We're reviewing that plan with remote monitors to see if different monitors could be purchased to reduce those costs. We also have, as I mentioned, if we are going to do an investigation, we might have those costs. Those high level estimates right now are start at $1 million probably to do that investigation after we demolish the buildings. And obviously, if we did find something, there's some significant costs that could be borne there, actually entering the well and trying to decommission it. We have been having ongoing discussions with the province regarding those costs. So as you can see in the report, is money spent to date, money being used for these purchases of properties, and kind of the cumulative, but there is still ongoing discussion even last week about these investigations. What if we find something? Who's going to cover those costs? And so we are continuing to push the province. And I can tell you, and Mr. Dubin would agree, that they are still very much at the table, interested in hearing our plans for the investigation. So at this time, I can tell you, there's still at least a couple million to go to get us done the investigation, but it's really the results of the investigation that are going to determine, okay, do we find something and the gas emissions cease? Okay, then maybe there's some cost to actually convert that land into some other public use. Or if we don't find anything and the gas emissions continue, the scrubber system on site may be more long-term and building something a little bit more resilient. So those are the costs, kind of budgetary, I have in mind to date, but we'll see as the investigation unfolds.
Thanks very much, Ryan. I appreciate that investigation. Clearly, substantial costs to come, but the top priority is the safety and security of our friends and family and neighbors in Wheatley. Thanks very much. That's my question.
Seeing no other questions, does anyone oppose the motion? Seeing none, motion passes.
D, motion by Councillor Pinsino, upgrade of McKinley Road between New Scotland Line and Rose Beach Line.
Councillor Pinsino, can I go to you, please?
Closed due to bank failure on Lake Erie, and whereas traffic is forced to go around the closure when traveling from Blenheim to Rondo, therefore be it resolved that McKinley Road be considered for tar and chip between New Scotland Line and Rose Beach Line this year. And if I get a seconder, I have some comments, Your Worship.
Councillor Wright.
I'll second that.
Councillor, floor is yours.
Thank you, Worship. The petition sign that's in favor of surface treatment is overwhelming. This is a great way to complete the waterfront trail again. The traffic level is so high on McKinley Road that the road it's taken a toll on that road. It's taken a real beating. The town of Ridgetown, once again, will benefit from the completion of this surface treatment. It's only 1.4 kilometers, and it won't be real expensive. I think, that's something that's very affordable, and it has a huge benefit to it. Rose Beach Line will not be reopened because of the bank failure, so this is the next best option. So I ask that you support this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Scacchi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Just a couple of quick technical questions to Edward. So I definitely appreciate Councillor Pinsino's advocacy for his ward, as well as I know there's a lot of benefits to Ward 2 as well. I guess I just have a couple concerns regarding the wording on the motion, and it's just at the end. I would be very happy to support it considered for priority, as in one of the most important roads to get to. I guess this year, just a couple questions to Edward. Edward, has there been any analysis done on that road from like a base standpoint or any perspective to see like if it can even be accomplished this year? I know it says for consideration. I'm just curious to see how that would look.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor for the question. That roadway or that segment of roadway is not on our list for tar and chips this year. I actually, if you indulge me for a second, I would like to provide a bit of a background on this history of this road. The EA was completed a number of years ago when the beach line was closed. At that time, it recommended the closure of the roadway itself, but also the resurfacing of the New Scotland Line. At the time, there was some consideration of looking at McKinley Road to be tar and chipped, but the previous road upgrade policy really is underneath the local improvement process previously. So We do have a gravel road prioritization project that we brought to council, I believe in October of last year. And through that process, we are looking at all of the gravel roads throughout the Chatham-Kent itself. And based on the various criteria of traffic and the conditions of the roadways and drainage and all that, we'll be coming back to council with a prioritization of which roadways we should be doing. I believe we're coming back in the summer of this year sometime. And then those roadways would be programmed into the construction schedule starting in 2025. So right now it's not on our schedule to do this year. I do know that we did hear from the delegation about a cost of $67,000. I wish I had a contractor who would do it for $67,000, but it's probably more around $500,000 to $600,000 to do the road. We're talking about a roadway that has some base issues. We heard about the washboarding on the roadway itself. That would indicate a very poor base. So it's not a simple tar and chip. We're talking about drainage, talking about doing ditches, doing some geotech. At this point, we haven't done any of that work, getting back to your question, and we really need to undertake some engineering to understand the full scope of what we need to do on that road.
Thank you. And so I guess the question I have no problems. I think it's extremely important to support the road because it does have a significant value from an arterial standpoint to Ridgetown. I guess I just have to ask you point blank, is this something that you think that we can even accomplish this year, given the fact that we haven't started the process yet? I would much rather the motion say considered for top prioritization, because I do think it's one of the most important roads that we get done with this process, but I just have no idea at all what the cost is going to be, or if it's even something that you can bring to us this year to get completed.
Thank you to you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. As I indicated earlier, it isn't something that was on our implementation list for this year. I can say that going through the gravel prioritization strategy and looking at some of the roads, it is a very high priority within Chatham-Kent. There's a number of these kind of roadways that have similar, traffic patterns and issues. So when we come back to council, I do envision that it'll be high on the priority list, and then we would schedule it out in an appropriate time frame based on the money that we have and the cost that we'd be incurring.
So I guess just a question to the mover and the seconder, Mayor Caniff, if they're okay with considering prioritizing McKinley Road for consideration, given the fact that the likelihood of it coming back this year is unlikely. I don't want to give the community hope that it's going to be completed this year if it's not able to be done.
Councillor Pinsino?
Worship.
Councillor Wright?
I'm good as long as it gets up near the top.
Okay. So the wording then would change to, Councillor Scott, you have some wording for that?
Sorry, I would just say considered as a top priority for the tar and chip. Actually, would be the road improvement process that you're going through, Edward. Is that appropriate wording for you, or because I know it's an entire exercise? So
I would be a priority in the gravel road prioritization process.
Yeah, and just closing, I think it's really important that we do advocate for, we're seeing a lot of erosion and issues like this that are changing the landscape of, our entire community. And I think we have to be mindful of the fact that, when these patterns change, there's significant issues that transpire on these roads with dust. A lot of I know we're looking through the gravel road process and how we maintain them, but when a road is, seeing maybe 30 to 80% more traffic, a lot of times that maintenance doesn't increase on those roads, and it really gets just, it gets looked at, but not any more than a road that's seeing half the less cars. So I really think it's important to prioritize this road. I just don't want there to be false hope that it would be completed this year, given kind of the conversation out there, but happy to support it because I do think that it's very big of importance to the economic development of the Ridgetown downtown core, as well as to the neighbors that are on the road that's seeing significant traffic.
Okay, we've got a number of speakers. I'll go to Councillor Wright, and then I've got Crew, McGrail, Anderson, and Doyle. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. This is going back 2 councils ago that this road was closed. That when I got on council, like the term before, it was already closed, and nothing's really, been done on it. The road's just getting worse, especially this time of the year. You can't even drive down it. There's so many potholes in it. It's not a road designed for the type of traffic that we're getting. The talk before was New Scotland line, tar and chip, and it would help. Well, that wouldn't help any because they still have to get over to the New Scotland line, so they have to drive around. When they leave their houses, a lot of these people, it's adding 7-8 kilometers per trip extra each time they go to town. So it's a lot of extra kilometers if you're driving to Ridgetown every week by the end of the week. But it's a real picturesque drive when you come off the McKinley and you head east. After about 200 meters, you come into where there's no cliffs and you're right down on the lake level, probably 10-15 feet above the lake, and it's really pictures, and that's what it was noted before. But these people have suffered on this long enough. Like, something needs to be done on here because it's too much driving around for them. And the people that live at the corners of New Scotland and Rose Beach, they can't even sit out in the yard part of the year because the dust is so bad coming down off the road. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go to Councilor McGrail, then Anderson, then Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. My quick question is to Edward. Edward, how much maintenance are we doing on this road right now in the last couple of years on average?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the councillor, I don't have a specific number for this particular road, but if I go back to the report that we presented to council in October, you know, on a yearly basis, we're going and grading the roadway. We're putting down the dust suppressant. And as Councillor Wright just indicated, the road is still getting potholed, it's getting washboarded. So to me, that would indicate that you know, the higher volumes are impacting this roadway much more. But it also would indicate to me that it's not really a simple conversion to tar and chip because it has base issues. So we need to deal with the underlying issues on this roadway. And if we're going to upgrade it, we need to upgrade it to a proper standard.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Rose Beach Line Road has been closed for 8 years? 5 years? 5.5 years. Is there any plans to reopen this road, or is there any opportunity to do that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the councillor, at the time, there was an environmental assessment undertaken, and the decision of that environmental assessment was not to reopen that roadway given the erosion on the lake. So at this present time, there's no plans for that. There was some discussions about upgrading some of the other roadways, and that's really the crux of discussion here tonight. Is it McKinley Road? Is it New Scotland Line? So if this is a priority for council, we would look at this one in our gravel roads conversion program.
Thank you for that answer. And I would say, like, how do roads get chosen and put on this list? And why was this one not put on there, I guess? If this is becoming the new roadway, I mean, I would have never known that. I'm sorry to say I'm not familiar with this area. So how does it get put on as a priority? Is this the process that we go through, or is this something that is done through staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To councillor, in October, we presented, in the past, there really wasn't a process, to be honest. So last October, we presented to council a gravel roads conversion program strategy. We identified a number of priorities which would identify for us, or a number of factors that would identify what those priorities are. So this summer, we're coming back to council with a long-term plan about how we deal with a number of these gravel roads. We have them throughout the municipality and all areas of the municipality. And over time, some of these roadways really have changed in character. There's higher traffic volume. Some are now connectors. Some are have been impacted by closures such as this. So looking at all the roads throughout the municipality, we're going to come back to council with a list of priorities that we should convert from the gravel roads to either tar and chip or to asphalt. It all depends on the conditions of the roadway itself, and we'll be providing council with also costing for all those roads. It's not going to be a short-term implementation. There's going to be a lot of roadways on that list. and it'll be a longer-term implementation. I'll also remind council that through the budget process, we did set aside, starting next year, $1 million to start the conversion of those roadways as part of the program.
Thank you so much, Edward. I guess I would just, I certainly support this, and I know when there's certain circumstances where there's road closures, as I experienced one of those in Ward 1 as well, that looking into those roads that are being used more, I don't know if we need to do something special to put them on the list that they are looked at more frequently, because I know First Concession Line has had its own difficulties as well, because it wasn't expected to be used for that. So I'm more than happy to support this motion, and I definitely look forward to seeing it near the top of the list when you come back in the summer.
Just want to add in, yes, I believe it's very important that we get this to the top of the line, because I've been dealing with it for a number of years now. And also glad that we're going to do it right, like dealing with the base and stuff, rather than put something on and 2 years later, we're talking about how crappy the road is because it's all disintegrating because of the base. So I look forward to seeing a list and seeing this as a priority. Anyone have any questions? Seeing none, is anyone opposed to this motion? Seeing none, motion approved. Thank you. Why don't we take a 1 minute break? Probably a few people will be want to head out now, and right here. Sorry, can I ask everybody that's yes, leave quietly? We have the rest of the meeting to go, so thank you.
Chief Administrative Office, item 19A, Together CK Grant 2024 funding recommendations. And I was just notified that Councillor Wright has declared a conflict on this item also, and a reminder that Councillor McGrail has also.
With that, I'm going to ask Councillor C. McGregor to come take the seat for this one.
Thank you, and pleasure to be sitting here on your behalf. And we'll move to item 19A, and the recommendations are before you. So we can put it on the floor, and then I will start to take questions. Mayor Caniff, you'll put that on the floor?
Yes, I will. I will with I've had a modification as well.
Yes. Councillor Finn, you'll second that. Thank you. And I will turn it right over to you.
Thank you very much. I just want to start with a little prelude. We're all very familiar with this program and how important it is to Chatham-Kent. The amount of things in front of you, there's a document that kind of goes over, there's been over $5 million distributed to this program over the last 24 years, which has helped sustain, create, and maintain a number of events. It helps with infrastructure, with not-for-profits. It's a very valuable program. During COVID, the amount spent on it dropped significantly. And so over the 2 to 3 year period, we didn't spend a whole lot, and the reserves built up in this. So we're looking at approximate 600,000 to 700,000 in the reserves within there. So as I go through this, what I'd like to do is I'd keep the first 4, but there's a 5th point I'd like to add to it, and if we could put it on the screen, I don't have it written in front of me, but I'm used to having that monitor there.
Would you like me to read it for you?
Yes.
Yes, Judy, could you please read that for me?
Number 5, $48,639 be used from the Together CK Reserve to cover an increase to recommended application grant amounts for those applications that were not awarded 90% or more of their requested amounts, to increase the recommended amounts by 10%, not to exceed the grant maximums, and to adjust a change to the Dresden Night Market recommendation to combine the winter and summer events.
So I'll elaborate on those two. So within there, so if there's a program in there that didn't get 100%, what this motion is asking to do is basically say go across the board and add another 10%. So that's a significant portion of that $48,000 is everything that was the committee went through and adjusted, we're going to be adding 10%. They have limited funds, so they had to go through and share that. So in order for there's 50 events and programs, there's probably, this motion affects about 40 of them. So somewhere in there that didn't get the 100%, 30 to 40. The second piece of it deals with the Dresden Night Market. The application was made and they separated between the two, the summer and the winter one. So with that, it didn't get into the significant events. What this motion does, it puts it in a significant event. Most of us here have been to the Dresden Night Market, or both in the summer and winter, and realize how significant it is. So by doing that, it raises, I believe the sum that would go to them goes from $3,750 to $13,750, because it is a significant event. Between the two in the summer, winter, it's attracting thousands and thousands of people. And that puts it in line with what they've been receiving historically as well. So that's what this motion does. It really focuses on enhancing what we're doing in the community. Basically, everybody that's getting this money is volunteers, and it's helped support them make a difference in our community. So with that, I will hit mute.
Thank you. Councillor Finn?
I'd be happy to second that.
Thank you. And do we have any?
I just want to clarify, Councillor Allen has also declared a conflict of interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further comments or questions from the councillors? Councillor Harrigan.
Thank you. I just want to comment that I really do appreciate Mayor Caniff's comments, because certainly I know some of those groups that are applying for funding and find out they're getting $1,500 less or $1,000 less. It's really the difference between the go and no-go on some of these events. I do want to just share feedback that, again, this year I did receive comments about this process. They were around the range of the deadline, again, for being in the fall is difficult because people are starting to think about some of these events maybe in January or February if they're smaller community groups. And so it's disheartening to say, oh, well, sorry, you missed that deadline by a few months. I know we have our own counselor funds that we can support and give, but I actually think, maybe considering next year pushing it back to February, but making the spend eligible from January 1 could be a strategy to overcome that. And I also was given feedback that the timing of the deadline is not clear. So the date was very clear, but some people missed the deadline by hours. I don't think we should ever be in a position where people are missing deadlines by hours, right? So just as some feedback that I wanted to say in public, I was, happy to see there was lots of small groups that were granted some funds, but there's always an improvement opportunity for that. So I wanted to share that feedback.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions on the 5 motions or the 5 recommendations? Seeing none. You would like a follow-up? Yes.
I'll just follow up for the close there. Just to do with that, the reason it was moved up to earlier in the season was so people would know in advance, because we waited till there and we're not releasing it till January or February, March, or April of that year. Some events might not even know they're getting funding until then. That was the purpose of moving that forward. And yes, that was addressed the few hours late, that's been changed for next year, and that what didn't impact people this year. They still got fun. They're still apply for the funding. So those comments were heard. We're always looking for ways to improve the system, and I just want to thank the committee. The committee that does this is a volunteer committee that puts a lot of hours in and has to sort through, make a lot of really hard decisions, given they've only got so much money and they got so many amazing programs and events happening in Chatham-Kent. So I want to thank them for their tireless efforts in this, and that's why I still want to recognize, and this motion still recognizes their efforts to prioritize the events and the program. So thank you.
Thank you. And with no further discussion on that, is there anyone opposed to receiving the recommendations? Not seeing any, that carries unanimously. Thank you.
We'll go to notices of motion. Councillor Doyle, Councillor Jubenville, Councillor Harrigan, and myself. Councillor Doyle, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mayor. I, Ryan Doyle, bring the following motion forward for voting tonight. I would like to waive the notice of motion since there is a need for this service during the winter season. Whereas the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 185, a municipal parking lot, and a couple other businesses are located on a short strip of Catherine Street in Blenheim between Talbot Street West and Marlborough Street South. Whereas Catherine Street has a high volume of walking traffic, especially with many seniors going to the Legion from the municipal parking lot. Therefore, be it resolved that the municipality immediately include Catherine Street between Talbot Street West and Marlborough Street South in the downtown business areas winter and highway bylaw 178-2019, so that those sidewalks will be plowed and salted with the rest of the Blenheim downtown business area, and that staff be directed to bring the bylaw amendment at a future meeting for the purposes of documenting this change in service. Thank you.
Thank you. So the first vote that we will put on the floor is we need a mover and seconder to waive notice, and a 2/3 vote is required.
Councillor Doyle, are you going to move notice?
I will, yes.
Councillor Scotchy, will you second that?
Yes.
Any discussion on that? Councillor Doyle, do you want to say anything else? Before we get started?
Just so people have an idea, so the Catherine Street that I'm talking about is 133 meters long, so it's not that long. Oh, okay,
sorry, thank you. This is just on the 2/3 to get it put on.
Just because we don't have any other meetings, we've got a meeting at the end of February, so if we do get some snow and stuff in the meantime, this can be taken care of.
Councillor Scott, any questions relating to the 2/3?
No, I just think that it's as Councillor Doyle said, the timing perspective, and it is a very short area, and it is right in our downtown core, so.
Councillor Finn?
Just one, how would this affect the contract that does those sidewalks? Like, would it?
That's a question we
Okay.
can deal with just to.
Disregard that then.
Okay, so Councillor Harrigan.
Thank you. So just so I'm clear, we're looking at waiving notice to discuss this tonight versus the February 26th meeting because of the winter weather. I think it's really important if we're waiving notice that we are doing so on urgency. And the forecast for the next couple of weeks does show a very mild February. The reason I hesitate to do this instead of discussing it tonight is our BIA in Tilbury has very similar concerns. There's about 100-meter stretch of sidewalk that they would like to be included in that. And I think if we have the extra even 2 weeks, and we know that Councillor Doyle's brought this forward, then subsequent councillors can kind of look to their BIA areas and say, hey, do things match up? And we can do it all once instead of doing Blenheim and then doing Tilbury because it's on my list. And so I appreciate the urgency and the response needed for the community. But we don't have a snowstorm in the forecast in the next couple of weeks, and so this could be something where we could maybe make better use of staff time to do it all at once if we give that proper notice. So I'm very supportive of the motion, opposed to waiving notice for this evening.
Councillor C. McGregor.
I guess I'm in the very same position as Councillor Harrigan on this, as our Branch 18 Legion is literally across the bridge from the BIA area with very similar problems and issues. So in all fairness to one area, I think it needs to be looked at, and I'm not sure how that affects contracts. So, and certainly should be looked at for contracts going further if we're considering some of those areas in our communities. So, again, very in favor of looking at this, not necessarily in the 2/3 to waive it for tonight, so that we can have proper opportunity to have discussion within our communities.
Edward, if hearing the comments coming back, is this something that by the next council meeting, you would be able to kind of do a look at all of Chatham-Kent to say, is there similar opportunities in other urban areas to do this? Or I just want to get your thoughts here before we proceed on.
I'm sure Ryan's going to have some input here as well. I would say that, tonight we've heard 3 separate councillors identify some potential concerns. So I think we need some time, if we want to do it as one, to have that dialogue, to hear from the councillors which sections those are, and then we can report back to you with the financial implications and what does that mean to the contracts as we kind of move forward. Otherwise, we'll be doing this, separately.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to avoid here, is that we have 4 motions or 5 and we can deal with it all at once. It's just more efficient. So, but if we were to defer, if the motion read similar to something they say, can you bring a report back the next council meeting to say, or how, I'm not sure how we identify them all into that, but just I'm looking at some practical nature for that.
So I'm going to defer to Mr. Brown to see what he thinks in terms of what he can bring back next time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the challenges with following due process is that reports to council for the February 25th meeting are due tomorrow morning. My boss doesn't allow exemptions. But I think one of the challenges that, and I really see the issue, it's winter, right? And I really understand that concern. One of the challenges is we've heard from 3 people around the horseshoe already this evening that they have one in their mind. Councillors take this back, the BIAs have some that they have on their mind. And it almost turns into a bit of a public consultation process on the winter level of service sidewalk bylaw. Now, for a bit of memory, that bylaw was created about 3 years ago through some public consultation process and how those maps were generated. So what I'm hearing and seeing is that there's some changes to be reflected. So to come back for the next meeting, I think there may be a few changes that have come in, like we've heard this evening. But, I think really we'll have some, but to actually write a report on broader review, it's just not practical to have it at the next meeting. But to consult with the 3 councillors that mentioned and get those included, it turns into a bigger project quite quickly. So my recommendation is it's February. The forecast looks pretty good for now. Are we going to get more snow? Probably. But if this is something we want to launch some broader public consultation about redoing these maps and including and the financial implications to it and staffing or contractors to do that it's something that could be in place by next winter.
Councillor Doyle, just go to you. Based on the discussion, you still want to proceed on with putting this tonight, or would you like to make it part of a bigger motion to fix it for next winter? It's your call. I just giving you the options.
Let's do it tonight.
All right. Okay, so we're going to vote now. Oh, Councillor Harrigan.
Sorry, just to clarify what, I still believe if this was deferred for 2 weeks, then I could ask Councillor Doyle in 2 weeks for a friendly amendment and have my exact, literally for me, it's one more block, right? Added to that motion, and maybe Councillor McGregor has something very similar. And then the bigger engagement process happens next year. So that's why, so that's where I was going. I wasn't necessarily saying let's defer it so that we can have this grandiose engagement. Okay. It was just to defer to allow some specifics in the future motion.
And Councillor McGrail.
Thank you to you, Mayor Caniff. I do understand, but I think if we dig a little bit deeper, there's going to be more places that we need to include. And if we exclude right off the bat, I'm not comfortable with that. I think bylaw does need to be looked at and to move forward, but to exclude right off the bat, I don't think that's a fair thing for us to do right now. unfortunately.
Councillor Doyle, final thoughts before we vote on the 2/3?
Can I have a question? Is it possible to amend my original motion to include doing what I asked to do right now and then asking for a report to be brought back to council for other areas? And then that way, the people who asked for it to be done for this winter, for the Legions, they'll get it done, and then we can still work on the other areas as well. Is that
That, you can put whatever you'd like in the motion, just knowing that if you put yours in now, there's gonna be other areas that say, well, hang on here, I'd like the same thing happen, why isn't it happening there? So that's all.
Yeah, and I'm completely okay with that. Like, I'm not saying mine's the only one that needs
No,
it done.
but that's, so you wanna put in there, well, actually, so given that, we can waive the notice, we're gonna vote on the notice. So any other questions about whether we wanna talk about it tonight or we wanna defer to the next meeting? That's what this is about. Any other questions on that? Okay, so, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Story.
Real question, as a newer councillor, is there any procedural bylaw related to reasons for 2/3 motions? In terms of do they have to be a specific topic or need or what have you, or could we always bring a 2/3 motion on any item? I just want to make sure that I'm clear on procedure. It's not no comment on the motion itself, because I do agree with it in terms of addressing these sidewalk issues. We've heard them in Chatham as well, so we might have some to add, but I wasn't sure about the 2/3 motion piece. But Councillor Harrigan mentioned it a little earlier about it's usually reserved for urgent matters. So I just want to understand for tonight and moving forward what that would normally look like. Who decides that? Or does it matter? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So in our procedural bylaw, we have a section that indicates that we can waive notice for certain things. And this is one of them where we want to waive the notice to the public. Probably, maybe council may remember during our training, from a transparency and open perspective, the clerk always encourages you to give notice to the public so the public has the opportunity to come and speak to the matter whether they're for it or against it. But sometimes there are matters that need to be waived due to timing, urgent matters, et cetera, et cetera. There are other motions within the procedural bylaw that I won't go into that require 2/3, such as reconsideration, that type of stuff. But a motion to waive notice requires a 2/3 vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy, for that. I certainly understand where Councillor Doyle is coming from and I appreciate the efforts. I think I would prefer the public feedback piece and having the other councillors provide their feedback, as Councillor Harrigan stated, but I certainly appreciate the effort and will cross my fingers for no more snow in general. Thank you.
All right, so with that, we'll vote. Who's in favor of waiving the notice, the 2/3 notice? Please put up your hand.
Councillor Pinsino?
No.
And Councillor Story?
No.
And Councillor Brock McGregor?
No.
So it's 3, 4, 5. This is to waive, so you've got,
So we got 6 people supporting it,
okay.
correct?
So the motion to waive is failed then. We require 11 votes yes, 5 votes no, as a minimum. Therefore, just to be clear that this motion does not go away, it will be included on the February 26th council agenda.
Councillor, sorry, you had a question regarding that?
Just because I've seconded the motion, I was just curious if Councillor Doyle would entertain the fact, since we've heard all this, so we're not going to get maybe 5 different motions here about different areas, that staff bring a report back to council looking at all high traffic areas within the BIA for consideration. I know it's different than the actual motion, but we just heard like 6 different areas. So this is going to go with his notice, but can't we just do a notice of motion for all the BIAs, if that's what we're looking at here?
Well, this motion won't be voted on until next meeting.
I understand that. I
modification.
understand that. I'm talking about his notice of motion, because his motion that he made tonight that's going to be reconsidered is not considering everyone else's concerns. All it's considering is the Blenheim Legion area. So all I'm saying is if the motion addresses the entirety of all the BIAs, that way there's not all the other different motions coming back, or...
Counselor Doyle can change it however you'd like, moving for the
Okay,
next.
just leave it then.
So if there's something you'd like to add in there, if we get your motion, if there's anything you'd like to change specifically in there?
Yeah, I would change it to basically exactly what Anthony was saying, to include the other areas of the BIA, downtown areas of the BIAs, to be included in the report.
So that will be voted on for the next meeting, so just put in there, knowing there's gonna be issues, how are you gonna identify all those areas? There's 10 or 11 BIA or downtowns that between now and then, you're gonna put the motion out, and then you'll be saying, let's look at that, and how are we gonna accumulate that without public consultation, et cetera. I understand where you're getting, and it's just gonna be hard to get there in short order to capture everything.
Okay, so could I leave it the way it is for now, and then potentially amend it and add?
Could I encourage you to work with Edward's group to maybe come up with a motion that'll work, rather than us trying to do on the fly and modify it accordingly so that we have all that captured? Councilor Anderson?
Thank you. In the meantime, can I also ask that Mr. Brown forwards the snow removal map that we have currently, so that we all kind of know where it actually covers and if we need any improvements, so that we can share it with our local BIAs?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just so I'm clear on the question about the current bylaw, so it is posted on the website. The number is in Councillor Doyle's motion. It's on CK bylaws on our website. And you can read it. It talks about our sidewalk winter maintenance level of service. And it also has maps in the last few pages that show every BIA area and what sidewalks Public Works salts. And I just wanted to make that clarification. Public Works level of service in there is that we will plow all sidewalks once snow accumulation reaches 8 centimeters, but Public Works only salts down the areas identified in the map. All other areas are salted by the adjacent homeowner. So that's what we're talking about, is just who salts, not who plows. So I just want to make that clarification. It is available on the web. I can send it out to all council as well.
Great, thank you.
Councilor Jubenville. Your notice motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I, Councillor Rhonda Jubenville, bring forward the following notice of motion for discussion and voting at the next council meeting on February 26th. Whereas Chatham-Kent Council presently has 17 councillors and a mayor, and whereas neighboring municipalities such as Windsor and London have larger populations with less members of council, and whereas there is a large urban-rural divide amongst Chatham-Kent and its elected council representatives, therefore, be it resolved that Chatham-Kent Council invite a third-party consultant to conduct a review of the existing size of council membership to decrease the size of council to a maximum of 12 councillors and a mayor, and to review the ward boundaries and redefine them to include Chatham proper and rural areas into each ward. This will be returned to council for discussion and voting in time for the 2026 municipal election. Thank you.
Councilor Harrigan.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I, Councillor Melissa Harrigan, hereby provide notice that I will bring forward the following motion at the February 26th council meeting for discussion and voting. Whereas the town of Tilbury has experienced consistent and unprecedented flooding over the last 5 years, and whereas the municipality of Chatham-Kent has an approved Tilbury Storm Master Plan with 15 individual projects that are required to achieve the plan, and whereas there is a need to support immediate concerns regarding the operation of local pumping stations in Tilbury while the master plan projects are approved, especially during times where there is no hydro. Therefore, be it resolved that staff return to council with a report outlining the following. 1, a solution that is able to be implemented in the current year that will ensure continuous operations of the pumping stations during hydro outages. 2, the approximate cost of said solution with a recommended reserve to fund the solution. 3, a recommended implementation timeline for council to consider should a solution be adopted. And 4, that this report be received in the spring of 2024. Furthermore, should council support the recommendations in the report, that staff return to council in the fall of 2025 to identify the impacts on the solution in Tilbury with any recommendations to implement similar solutions across Chatham-Kent as appropriate.
Okay, thank you. I've got one as well. I, Mayor Darren Caniff,
Sorry,
will,
point of order, Mayor Keniff, I had two. Do you want me to wait for my second one? Or
no, go ahead.
okay, it's much shorter.
Perfect.
I, Councillor Harrigan, hereby provide notice that I will bring forward the following motion on February 26th council meeting for discussion and voting. Whereas Chatham-Kent is undertaking a recreational master plan in 2024, and whereas user experience and accessibility is an important feature for our recreational spaces, and whereas the current council strategic plan includes the goal of delivering excellent service by improving communication and civic engagement, and also promote community safety and well-being by exploring new and enhancing existing opportunities, therefore be it resolved that staff include considerations towards the implementation of public Wi-Fi access within CK recreational buildings as part of the recreational master plan, and that any cost implications to the inclusion of public Wi-Fi be brought forward to consideration in the 2025 budget deliberations.
Okay. I, Mayor Darren Caniff, will bring forward the following motion at the February 26, 2024 council meeting for discussion and voting. Whereas the municipality of Chatham-Kent currently has a noise bylaw that addresses unusual, unnecessary, and excessive noise, and whereas from time to time new issues arise in relation to noise complaints which may not have been fully addressed when the bylaw was drafted, including complaints which result from neighbor disputes. Therefore, be it resolved that building services and legal services be directed to perform research regarding potential revisions to the noise bylaw based on complaints received in Chatham-Kent, which could not be fully addressed under the current bylaw, and based on best practices implemented in other municipalities in respect of noise bylaw regulations, and council will return with a report for consideration and voting on any updated noise bylaw provisions. We'll go now to closed session report. Councillor Crew.
Council directed administration on a proposed acquisition of land with regard to the Wheatley explosion, Section 239 2C of the Municipal Act 2001. I so move.
Councillor McGrail, can I second that, please?
Yes, I'll second that.
Anyone opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Communication items. Councillor B. McGregor, you wanted to discuss item 2A.
Thank you. Yes, I wanted to pull item 2A, which also relates to item 3C. So that's the policy update, social and economic prosperity review and draft resolution from the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. So this is something that we've been talking about ourselves around the council table for quite some time. We're aware of, after going through the budget situation, the fiscal reality of municipalities picking up increased costs outside of what used to be municipal responsibilities. And with what we've seen with budget pressures all throughout Ontario, municipalities, this past budget process, it's pretty clear that the relationship between municipalities and the province has to change in order to maintain social and economic prosperity. So much like Orangeville just recently did, I believe we should bring forward this resolution from AMO and pass that draft resolution, sending copies again to back to AMO and to relevant partners.
Councillor Bondi, will you second that?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, any other thoughts? Councillor B. McGregor?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward. We've had this discussion a number of times, and I think we need to join other municipalities in being a loud voice, advocating for the changes necessary to keep our municipalities sustainable.
Okay, any other questions? Is anyone opposed to that? Seeing none, motion carries. Councillor Sakachi, you wanted to talk about item 2G.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Caniff. I just actually wanted to put a brief motion forward. It has to come as a motion, is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes, you're asking for a motion to, for a
Yes,
letter of support.
correct, yes. Where Golden Acres Curling Club in Blenheim is home of curling league for both youth, adults, as well as shuffleboard players. The facility is also a community space that is used by residents hosting events such as bridal showers and baby showers, birthday parties, and other events. Whereas the club is gathering information to apply to the Ontario Trillium Foundation for a grant. Be it resolved that the mayor, as well as the municipal council, provide support letter from the municipality that the facility becoming fully accessible would make a great community option for people looking for a place with a kitchen that can rent it and gather with friends and loved ones that have accessibility requirements.
Councillor Doyle, will you second that?
Very happy to second that.
Any other discussion there, Councillor Scotchy? Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, anyone oppose? Seeing none, motion carries. Councillor Doyle and Councillor C. McGregor, can I get you to move the rest of the communication items? Oh, Councillor Bondi.
Thank you. Good thing I didn't say anything that's still on. Been caught doing that once before. This is, you too, Marjorie. This is regarding 2I. I was contacted by the organizer of this petition, so I'd just like to read it. That's what I was requested to do, and I think it's only fair, so I shall read it. Regarding the municipality of Chatham-Kent and the purchase of the former Sears building, whereas on January 15th, 2024, Chatham-Kent Municipal Council voted in favor of purchasing the former Sears building, a part of the downtown Chatham Center property, from 100 King Street Holdings, Inc. And whereas it is the intention of the Chatham-Kent Municipal Council to move the Civic Center, the Chatham Public Library, and the Chatham-Kent Museum to the former Sears building location. Therefore, the citizens and taxpayers of Chatham-Kent are greatly and publicly opposed to this decision and request that CK Council reconsider their decision, as the former Sears building is in disrepair and too costly for taxpayers to renovate and retrofit, and then move the Civic Center, the library, and the museum to that location. The citizens of Chatham-Kent request that we keep the current municipal assets in the current locations of the Chatham-Kent Civic Center, the Chatham Public Library, and the Chatham-Kent Museum, and do the necessary repairs or renovations required along with regular maintenance to these current buildings to make each location a safe environment for employees, volunteers, and visitors. So that's the end of the petition, I understand. So this is the information that follows. Petition received January 29th, 2024. The following of unconfirmed signatures: Chatham-Kent resident 772, outside of Chatham-Kent 195, total signatures 967, and original in the clerk's office. And again, that was a petition that was circulated, and I was asked to read it as for the public record. Thank you.
Councillor Doyle and Councillor C. McGregor, can you move the rest of the items in the communication?
Happy to move those.
Happy to second.
Anyone opposed to them? Seeing none, motion carries. Non-agenda business, Councillor McGrail and Councillor Crew.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I have two questions I would like to ask, and it's on behalf of myself and Councillor Juvenville that I ask these. So the first one is in regards to Park Street Place in Dresden. Where are we with this, and is there anything we can do, and what services are we providing to the residents to help transition them into a safer environment?
Thank you, Councillor, for your question. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I can advise that staff actually met with a couple of provincial organizations late this afternoon. They met with the Retirement Homes Regulatory Authority, and they also met with the Home and Community Care Support organizations. They wanted to get a better understanding of the number of residents that were impacted and also what some of the next steps were with respect to the issue. Part of the challenge that we're having and that the regulatory authority and the Home and Community Support Services is having is that there's not a lot of cooperation with the existing organization, and so they're having some difficulties in getting the information that they need. I can share with you that the number of residents that will be impacted is down to about the mid-20s right now, so that's significantly less than what we thought it was going to be. We've let the both provincial authorities know that we don't believe that this is a municipal position, a municipal problem. However, we're very concerned about the residents, and we want to ensure that we're not in a position where vulnerable residents are left homeless at the end of the closure. We've asked that we be kept apprised of the next steps, and we will continue to have ongoing communications with them. That's the best information that I have at this point in time, and I'm happy to share additional updates as we receive them.
Thank you. I guess my last question is that residents that are still in the home, are they safe?
I think I would probably want to go back to staff and get a better assessment around that. I can tell you that the province is involved. They are the licensing body, and they are the ones who are overseeing the process, and they are overseeing the residents as well, and it's their responsibility to ensure the safety of the residents. I can confirm that, but I believe that that's a true statement, so I can confirm that for you.
Great, thank you. My second question is probably for Bruce and maybe Michael. York one. So this last Friday, it was confirmed that there were letters from York One being distributed to Dresden in regards to a dump. I'm going to say it for layman's terms, and please correct me when I say that. Please, can you share with us where, the municipality is at this point? Has there been engagement? Who has given the engagement? What is our next steps, if there's any right now? Are we evaluating? And can you confirm with me tonight that we will have some kind of public statement, just to acknowledge the letter and what's going on, and that, yes, the municipality knows about it and where we're going with it, please?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So, yes, you are correct. Last week, we did receive a notice from the ministry that York One has applied to amend a technical amendment to what they call an environmental compliance approval with the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. So, we did not receive the specific letters directly that were sent to adjacent landowners. I understand as part of that process, they are required to notify only landowners that are adjacent to the subject property. And maybe I'll just back up a step on people who are talking about it. So this is not necessarily a new waste management facility, right? It's been in existence for 40-some years to some extent. It's been somewhat inactive, I'll say, for the last several years. We did know it was sold a couple of years ago. There were some initial conversations with the new group that they would be getting back to us, eventually with plans. We had asked for further information. So we had not heard anything until last week when we received this notice. So there are, like I mentioned, there are some existing legacy approvals on site. There is what they call an ECA, or environmental compliance approval, for a certain amount of waste processing on the site. It historically was used for some waste processing. There also is an ECA for a certain amount of landfilling. There was landfilling in the past with specific limitations on what could be landfilled on site. Right now, we've only got notice of an amendment for the processing facility. I understand there may be another ministry letter coming with regard to an amendment for the landfill component, but we don't have that yet. So given all this, we actually we need some further time to gather information and review. The ministry has asked that we provide any comments. As with the public, there is a formal posting on the Provincial Environmental Registry site that anybody can submit comments to by March 16th if they have concerns. So we're going to review that, and we'll form our opinion here over the next couple of weeks as what our next steps really are on this. So,
Thank you. This past weekend, Councillor Juve and I have been very busy fielding calls and that. Can we expect maybe a town hall meeting? I know that's a call that people are looking for from the municipality. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm going first. I think we can, but I'd be hesitant to do and host a meeting until such time that we understand what the actual proposal is. I'm not sure what we can offer yet until we form our position on this. So maybe at some point in time, that would be a good idea. I understand there might be some neighborhood meetings potentially with the proponent himself to share more information, but we haven't received notice of that either, so.
Okay, thank you very much.
Bruce, just along that line, can you clarify what the what municipally we need to be doing in this process? Like it's driven by the province has come in, we've got this letter from the province. What is it we are doing when you say we need more time? Just to clarify for everyone.
So, if it were a new landfill or waste operation, they would have to go through a full-blown, what they refer to as an environmental assessment. And then eventually you get what's called an environmental compliance approval from the ministry. That's more of the operational details, what has to be done on site. So they already have those legacy approvals. So the question is there anything further that needs to be done? That's what we need to understand what the proposal is. From a land use perspective, in our official plan, the property is designated as a waste management site. So there's policies that would permit waste management activities on site, obviously recognizing the use. We want to review the proposal against what the current zoning is. There may be some questions there, but it's too early for me to comment until we see the details. So it might be an issue of zoning, and we may comment back on that. If the zoning is in compliance, really then it's up to the Ministry of Environment and Conservation and Parks to make a decision on the amendments to the ECA.
So it's really important right now that residents that have their concerns go on that provincial site and voice their concerns. We all agree this is what I'm trying to promote for everyone right now.
Yes, correct. So any member of the public is open to make comments directly to the ministry through the website.
And as a municipality, is there anything we should be doing to lobby, the province? Is there anything we can do to do that piece right now?
In fairness, I think we need to look at the proposal more to see exactly what is proposed before we would take such a step. In fairness to list what existing approvals are in place.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Crew, followed by Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. This is the second council meeting in a row that I've come in, and there's been a postcard on my desk, and everyone else, the majority of council got one of these as well. The last meeting, and I just crumpled it up and threw it in the garbage where it belonged, but it was a postcard, and it was about flags, and it said, and there were some derogatory terms in that postcard to fly one specific flag and not another one that's very colorful. Somebody wasted money on a stamp thinking that was going to influence me. Today I come in, and a few others received a postcard from S. Goche in Merlin, NOP 1NO, I hope or is that a W, maybe? But they used my really good picture, and I appreciate that because I spent a lot of money on those pictures. And ask that this is the Anti-Democracy Council members in Chatham-Kent, please resign. So I'm going to read what it says on the back. And each one is addressed to each one of us, and I noticed that they're from a specific different person with similar handwriting. So this one says, Dear Councillor Crew, I respectfully call on you to resign as councillor because of your egregious assault on democracy, your weaponization of a flawed Integrity Commissioner's report to cancel and punish a councillor for introducing a common sense motion supported by many of our constituents has robbed Ward 4 of their voter rights and to have their voices heard through their elected representative. Chatham-Kent voters must never again be disenfranchised. So, this is from a very limited but loud group of people. I'm not gonna waste a dime or a dollar, whatever a stamp costs these days, to send this back. But what I'm gonna do is respond to them now. I won't resign. And I support democracy, and I fully support it. So please save your dimes, your nickels, whatever a stamp costs. Don't waste your money sending anything to me. My skin's a little thicker than that. Thank you very much. I just wanted to report that in the public. I don't think people realize how much of this we have been putting up with. Things have been put on our cars. There's petitions online that have some very derogatory, hateful things that we don't stand for in Chatham-Kent. And I will stand up for it every single time. This is wrong, and I'm not going to put up with it. Thank you.
Councillor Anderson, Councillor Anderson, followed by Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to piggyback off of Councillor Crew. I have not received anything because I believe I was not in the majority of council with that vote. But I think that there's definitely a misconception of what took place, and also a misconception of what the public understands what was voted on that night. We have a ethics commissioner. Their responsibility is to make sure that we're following the code of ethics. If we are not following it, it is up to them to decide what punishment they see is fit. We were not voting on whether the code of conduct was breached or the code of ethics was breached. That was already decided by the ethics commissioner. That was not something that we got to decide. That was already decided by the professional, that is their responsibility to do so. What was the responsibility of council was to decide whether it was the appropriate punishment or not. That is the only thing that council voted on that night. I do not think that voices were silenced. What happened, our councillor is still sitting here. She still has the right to use her voice. Her compensation was suspended for a certain amount of time. I did not agree that that was the most appropriate form of punishment for violating the code of ethics. That doesn't mean I didn't agree that she violated it. It meant I didn't agree with the punishment. I have spoke to the past commissioner about this, and I have also spoke to our new commissioner about this. My suggestion moving forward, if we are ever in a position like this again, is that we are given a number of different options as a punishment, and we come together as a council to vote on those different options to come up with something that is agreeable among the most of us. And I'm going to leave it at that.
Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I guess my comments were very similar. Just a quick question to the chair, Madam Chair. So now that we received these, Madam Chair, and they are our mail, are we able to share these publicly as well so people can see what we received on the front and back?
Madam Clerk, you mean?
Sorry, I do apologize.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's your mail. There is, if it was through here, there are addresses in the top corner that would have to be redacted from an FOI perspective, but.
I would absolutely redact the names that are in front, but I really think it's important to provide the information that was on here, and including the front and the back of them. This has just been happening more and more and more, and I've spoke to several of our councillors who you would think and hope that this stuff would start to go away, but it's not. And I'm guessing by the notice of motion that was just presented tonight, there's going to be more conversations about who should be here and who shouldn't be here. And I will have a different opinion than probably everybody in this room at some point in time, but I respect every one of you for having that opinion. I'll take your calls and I'll discuss things, but what's going on now and the type of assault in regards to stuff on my windshield, stuff in here when I come into the chambers on a regular basis, we signed up to help our community, not to always be assassinated by a very select group of people who are trying to undermine bringing all kinds of voice to the council chambers. And I'll continue to voice my concerns of the residents that I have, knowing that they're going to be different at sometimes, but I'm also going to continue to respect my co-councilors and understand that this is a really challenging time, and you can get your message across via email or call without the need to put these types of things in the general public, and that's all I really have to say about that.
Councillor Jubenville.
Thank you. I was unaware of these postcards, and I just want to confirm for the public, I have no knowledge of them. I'm not behind them. I know nothing about them, so I wanted to put that out into the public view so that they're aware of that. I've never brought it forward to council, but I've also received a lot of hate and a lot of attacks. I've received horrific things on my council desk as well, but I didn't feel the need to bring it up and around the horseshoe. But I as well have received the attacks, and I have not attacked any of you ever, nor would I, nor will I. I have continued to work respectfully and professionally with each and every one of you, and I will continue to do so until I am no longer here. And I just want to clarify that whatever this was had nothing to do with me. I'm not behind it in any shape, way, form, or matter. I can't control what has gone on, but I just want to make sure that no one thinks it has anything to do with me, was inspired by me, was instigated by me, because that is not the case. I've received just as much horrific and awful things on my desk, to my home. I have a website in my name by someone, and it's very offensive. And no, I don't bring it forward to council chambers, but so we're airing our dirty laundry, so I guess I will as well. So I just want to clarify that I will continue to work with council and move forward from what has happened, and hopefully we can all learn and grow, and it won't happen again. Thank you.
I just want to comment on this, just as it's good that we're having this discussion, but as I just collectively, I'm listening to this, we are here as a council to make Chatham-Kent better. And that's what we're working towards. Each and every one of us are here to do that. And we are all putting up with more negativity than, I've been in, this is my 10th year. The last few years, it's been more negative. And we're all dealing with it, everybody. So, we just have to remember that that's what we're here for. And I think those were the comments. Collectively, we're here to make the community better. So it's good that we're talking about this. And it's good that we can look forward, we can support one another. We are going to have difference of opinions. I will guarantee that. But we have to respect those opinions. That's what we're here to do, to hear it. So I just want to reiterate that the discussion is good, but we're here, and let's make some really good things happen in Chatham-Kent over the next 2.5 years. Councillor Bondi.
Well, thank you, Mayor Camp. Just to lighten it up a bit, I would just like to acknowledge the choir that was here this evening. And I want to give a particular shout out to this cute little girl named Bridget. Glasses, good looking like her father. Did a wonderful job.
Just to clarify, who's the father?
Undetermined.
Councillor Bondi is the father, just in case you didn't pick up on that.
I'll be sleeping over at your house tonight, I'm afraid.
Right, followed by Councillor Harrigan.
Thank you, Mayor Cannon. For yous that couldn't see it, there was two girls over here doing hand signals all through it.
They're signing.
Yeah, they're signing everything all through the song, the two little girls that were right out front here, so, thank you.
Excellent. I'm glad we were able to have them in, and that's just part of our arts and culture thing. So I think it was a lot of fun having them in, and we'll continue doing that the next, through the rest of this term, having various people, whether it's visual arts or so with that, no other non-agenda. Reading the bylaws. First and second, Councillor Pinsino and Councillor Harrigan.
And seconded.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Councillor B. McGregor, Councillor Jubenville for third and final reading. Okay. Councillor C. McGregor then. Substitution.
Happy to.
So seconded.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Resolution of council. Councillor Crew and then Councillor Anderson. I'll have you wrap it up for us.
I move that Chatham-Kent Council adjourn to its next meeting to be held on Monday, February 26, 2024, and that Chatham-Kent Council authorize itself to meet in closed session on that day to discuss any matters permitted by the Municipal Act. I so move.
And I am happy to second.
Anyone opposed to wrapping it up at 8:23? Seeing none? Thanks, everyone.